pound vest. I can only imagine if it was 100 pounds, but it makes me want to do some movements and training.
You were with Matchroom. I actually saw you fight in Cardiff.
Matchroom?
Matchroom. I don't know if you've heard of them.
You got some matches, coach? Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I wanted to touch on that. Like, obviously, there was we were seeing a lot of interviews with you, especially in UK media.
Yes.
You're becoming quite popular with the fans, and obviously you fought in the UK as well. Kind of peculiar. What happened there? I know you had the loss, but it was a very close fight. Mm-hmm. Did they just sort of turn their back on you, or?
Yeah, I mean, you just answer your own question. Turn their back on me, literally. I really thought it was gonna be a great family atmosphere. Eddie Hearn treated me like I was the next big thing, and then one fight, and boom, they cut my contract. I know it's business, but I took it personal because this is the way I provide for myself, it's my living.
Yeah.
You just cut my contract. Now, I said before, if anybody should have got the contract, it should have been Anthony Joshua. You let this back up, little short, fat, out of shape Mexican knock you out. Not because he's Mexican, but just a little fat guy knock you out. And what did Eddie do? He didn't cut his contract. Eddie threw his ass back in the ring like this.
Yeah.
Me, I lose a fight, tough opponent, and there was many things outside the ring that played a part in this, but I lost the fight. Close decision. Wasn't my best night, but I still came out the ring all intact. And what does he do? Cuts my contract, tells me I don't have what it takes to be a champion, even though he's never put on a pair of fucking gloves, which I'm just like, what does that mean? Eddie Hearn? Yeah, he told me I didn't have what it took to be a champion. He cut my contract, and then that was it. I've been DMing him, texting him. And I'm saying this as if he was right here. I would say this face to face.
Yeah.
He ignored my calls. That's disrespectful from man to man. I put my life in your hands every time I step in this ring. And you cut my contract and you came and answered my phone calls, text me back. That's why I love Legacy Sports. Legacy Sports, they do what they say. They keep their word. And it's a family atmosphere.
Yeah, it really is.
Wow. Those are the words of Anthony Sims, as Anthony Sims explains, surprisingly, that Eddie Hearn cut his contract after a split decision loss, okay? And you go back and you look at the loss. It was to Romer Alexis Angulo, okay? And Romer himself, if you look at he only has 2 losses himself. Both of these guys had good records. I haven't seen the fight personally, but according to him, as you guys heard, that Eddie Hearn cut his contract and said he doesn't have what it takes to be a champion. And if you look at Anthony Sims' record, his record speaks for itself. He's 20 with 1 loss and 18 KOs. Okay, and he has fought. I haven't heard of these fighters, me personally, but I'm reviewing his record, and no one really comes to mind as looking at his record. That I see, but 18 knockouts, 21 fights, that's a high knockout percentage. And it makes you think, me counterpunching, that right there is the problem with boxing. Okay. Now, what surprises me, this is the first time I've heard someone come out and say, hey, Eddie Hearn did me this way. Now, it hadn't been about money yet, but I have had a similar situation with Michael Hunter, and Michael Hunter explained, as you guys heard him explain when I was conducting a live interview with him, which he will come back. I will get him back on the show now more than ever, because he mentioned Anthony Sims. He mentioned this particular, mentioned Michael Hunter as another guy that got railroaded by Eddie Hearn. He got the shaft. Okay, so Eddie Hearn dropped him, and if anybody that can relate to agent versus talent or promoter versus boxer, which is similar, because at any time they can decide like, hey, we're cutting you or dropping you from this agency or from this promotional outfit. Okay. And I'm looking at the guys that he's fought. None of these guys come to mind that I've really. Morgan Fitch, I've heard of him. But other than that, you know, this was an up and coming fighter, you know, and I don't think this is right. I think Eddie Hearn should have had more compassion, but that's also leads to another problem. Monopoly. When you have so many fighters, when you have so much talent, and you have so many different opportunities, it's easy for you to say, you know what? I don't want that fighter over there. Let's cut him. He didn't make the cut. Versus, let me get with someone relatively smaller that appreciates me more, just like an agency. You can have agency with 300 talent, 300 people in their talent pool. Whereas if you had 30, those people in that agency that has 30, they can work with their fighters more. They have more compassion. They have a stronger connection. You know, it's a lot of situations and a lot of analogies that I could lead that to. But as far as Eddie Hearn dropping them, it also lets you to know business is a mother sucker. You have to know what you're signing. You have to know the fine print. Because if you don't, it's good to have a lawyer versus not having a lawyer to look over certain things just in case shit like this happens. Because there should be no logical reason that Anthony Sims was dropped by Matchroom unless Eddie Hearn didn't respect him as a talent. Of course, he couldn't have respected him as a talent, saying he doesn't have what it takes to be a champion after losing a split decision loss. So that means it was a pretty close fight, right? Okay, so why would Eddie Hearn tell Anthony Sims, and Anthony Sims counterpunched him. He got in that ass because he was like, well, you don't answer my calls. I DM you, you don't respond. He just cut him off. But that's a problem when you get too successful. When success gets up here and you have room to do those type of things. That is what you call integrity standards, a choice of integrity and what you choose and how you choose to handle certain people, even though you don't have to. Okay? So that goes a long way. It's not the people that succeed, it's the people that don't. It's the people, these are the stories that people need to know. Okay, because basically Eddie Hearn did some Bob Arum shit. What does that sound like? You dropped me, I didn't have anybody, or you just I fell through the cracks in your promotional company and I had to pay you out. Well, that sounds like Andy Ruiz. Speaking of Andy Ruiz, he said, and he mentioned Anthony Joshua. AJ, hey, AJ lost. He lost, and that was one of the biggest upsets since Tyson and fucking Buster Douglas. But he threw him back in there. Great comparison. Great counterpunch. Because Anthony Joshua did fall to Andy Ruiz. But of course, that's Anthony Joshua that made millions of dollars, that have fought people, and was known and acknowledged and established, okay, to counterpunch that, to be real, because it's business after all. But a good comparison, because the same thing happened to him in an upset, and he took a TKO loss. Anthony Sims, being young and promised, you lose one fight and then you're out. And that's also what I want to talk to you guys about. What's killing boxing is that type of mentality. Shit like that happens. It doesn't matter if it's Eddie Hearn. In this case, it is Eddie Hearn. But with Bob Arum and, because Andy Ruiz was undefeated when he fought Joseph Parker in his own backyard in a split decision. And look how Bob treated him. Bob, if he would have stayed with Bob, he wouldn't have got another shot. Now, Bob didn't cut his ass cold turkey like Eddie Hearn did. But he wouldn't have got the shake and the opportunity that he had, ironically, with Eddie Hearn and Anthony Joshua, if he would have stayed with Bob Arum. Counterpunch. But that's what's killing boxing versus MMA, UFC. Because those guys can lose. As long as they make a good account of themselves, they're not really worried about getting the next fight, about getting the next opportunity. The fans don't look at that because they don't perceive that, because they know, well, hey, he lost, but he gave us a good fight. I can't wait for him to come back. Those days of Mickey Ward, Arturo Gatti, those type of guys that fought, Julian Lederlow, those guys that fought like on ESPN2 and, HBO Boxing After Dark and those type of fights and those type of venues, they lost and it was okay. Why? Because those guys were entertaining and people's perception of boxing were different because you didn't have to have a fucking perfect record to be considered somebody in the sport of boxing. Now you do. Now you see why fighters don't want to fight people. That's why you don't get fights, or why fights, all of a sudden, oh, I got COVID, or I'm sick, or I got an injury. Chances are you didn't have any of it. You start thinking about the possibility of losing, and then because the thought of losing, knowing, hey, if I lose, I might not get an opportunity like that. Let me give you a prime example. Dominic Breazeale. Dominic Breazeale has 3 losses. He's lost to Anthony Joshua first, Deontay Wilder second, and Otto Wallin third. Now, are any of those guys low opposition? No. But Dominic Breazeale is done. And that's not right. Why? Because he's a hell of a fighter. He's either going to take an ass whooping or knock someone out. That is the guy that you people supposed to like based on a fan favorite because he gives you action. He might be slower than molasses in the wintertime, but he throws punches. He's a tough kid, and he has a high knockout percentage. And he in time to time, he gets knocked out, but that's only from the elite fighters. Okay, so the perception that we have as boxing fans should stop. So we don't have guys or Eddie Hearn doing bullshit like he did by cutting this guy lost because he lost his fucking O. You know what I mean? And for Eddie Hearn to say it don't matter if you don't. Let me call him on that shit if I hear him say that again, because that's exactly what I'm going to remind him of. This time with Anthony Sims. Now, Michael Hunter, I give Anthony Sims a lot of credit, because he should have done what Michael Hunter should have done. Michael Hunter mentioned, well, he cut me and dropped me like that. Because I don't really think he dropped Michael Hunter, but who knows? I just think Michael Hunter kind of was a level-headed dude that just didn't want to speak bad on Matchroom. But Anthony Sims don't give a damn. Anthony Sims is saying, hey, Eddie Hearn, you cut me. And that was some bullshit because I didn't have a loss and I took 1 L on a split decision. You could have at least orchestrated a rematch. Okay, that's what I would have done. If I was promoting this guy from America, and that's something else I'm going to get to, I would at least, hey, we need a rematch. The fight was close. We need to run that back. So he can get some get back, right? And that was his last fight. Now, speaking of America, this guy was born in Indiana, okay? And Eddie Hearn brought him over here as a part of that DAZN, and he signed with DAZN. And then that's how you're going to do someone. Well, okay, if people hear Sims advocate, right? Advocate what you've done, why would someone else over here want to sign you? Or unless you're only worried about UK fighters and UK talent, that shows favoritism and bias. And that is fucked up. Because would he do that to Beefy Smith? Would he do that to Billy Joe Saunders? Would he do that to Anthony Joshua? Dillian White? Did he do it to Dillian White? Dillian White got knocked the fuck out. You see what I mean? It looks bad. Okay, it looks really bad. And then when people hear this, you can't argue with them then, because you clearly see the difference between how you treat your own versus how you treat other people from other places. But anyway, that's Anthony Sims giving you his take on what happened between him and Matchroom with Eddie Hearn. Tell me what you think. Please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunch. Peace.